In the paper that we're writing for this is about sexual minority mothers' processes of gender expression among their children. So in this study, we are really interested in learning about how do invisible sexual minority women think about gendering their children, and do invisible sexual minority women perceive their sexual identity as impacting that. So we refer to gendering as someone who imposes a particular role or signifier that communicates a gender binary. So for example, if a parent might gender their child who is assigned male at birth by dressing him in blue and using masculine pronouns. So for this, we used the qualitative data from 29 manuscripts in both Toronto and Boston sites. And we kind of came about 9 overarching themes that kind of talk about this. So the first one is aesthetic or signifiers. So if anyone kind of speaks to particular objects, it's usually dresses or toys or clothing. Another one we were interested in is the assigned sex of the children. So when participants explicitly state whether or not they value one sex over another. Sometimes we hear conversations about participants who had thought early in the pregnancy they were going to have a boy and then it was a girl, so conversations related to that. Another one is gender intentional parenting, so specific actions that participants have taken to shape a child's environment. We're looking for parents who are being really deliberate about it. So this includes, typically it looks like things like shopping for gender-specific clothes or engaging in particular conversations with partners, and sometimes their own kids as well if they have like older kids. Another one is parent motivations for gender-related parenting. So this includes things like particular ideologies or concerns over risk and safety. Another one that includes is reactions to gendering the parents. So usually refers to instances of when a child has been gendered, or when their child has been gendered, and kind of like how they feel about it. Their emotions around it. It's usually triggered by other kind of social influences. Participants' perspectives on how sexual identity influences parenting, so how participants believe their sexual identity influences or doesn't influence their parenting. And then speaking more to social influences. So social influences can be anything from receiving gendering gifts from family or receiving misgendered comments from strangers, so like from other folks that are kind of part of their life, either kind of like very close like family or people like strangers. And then also talking about norms, so things that are kind of like, again, more broad and not necessarily connected to a particular instance or a particular individual. Thoughts or feelings about that. And then also we were interested in looking at sort of the time, whether or not there was a shift over the year in which the participants were interviewed. So far right now we have most of our data coded, but we don't have a lot of analysis yet. But what we found is that participants are aware that their children get gendered at a very young age, and oftentimes also get sexualized as well. So there's conversations about being like kind of knowing that or being aware of that. And that the gendering process is very much reinforced by a binary. So for folks who have babes that were assigned like male at birth, or babes that have been assigned women at birth or girls at birth, there's like a very clear gender binary. A lot of the conversation is talking about it through clothes and toys that are also really gendered. And there's also a pretty strong conversation about motivations, where a lot of the participants really kind of are not as interested about talking about the gendering of their child, but more so like wanting their child to be who they are. And in many cases are kind of talking about sort of their future children, because at the time of the interviews their children are so young. And so this is really interesting because there is literature on sort of gendering and parenthood, but a lot of the focus is on same-sex relationships in same-sex sort of households. And so there's really very little or no data to kind of talk about invisible sexual minority women and sort of the relationships that are kind of a part of that. So we're really interested in kind of seeing what those findings are and connecting it with and like seeing what the other literature says about that.